One of the things the enemy is using to weaken God's children is this selfish, self-centered, greedy attitude that you see on some believers. You actually see it in a lot of believers, Now, one of the things a believer receives freely is the ability to pray. Is the authority God has given to every believer in a place of prayer, But we see it over and over again and constantly that a lot of believers are only interested in things that is directly connected to them. A lot of believers are not interested in intercession, And if you look closely at the church today, not all of it, but a greater majority of what we see in church, a lot of the things you see in church today are things that have trickled down from the Pharisees. If you look closely between the way the Pharisees were conducting or living and the way the apostles, the guys Jesus Christ left behind were living, they are two separate things altogether. And some of the things that have trickled down from the Pharisees has found itself in the house of God. So you see a Christian movement, that came together, that allowed people to share certain things, certain belongings. You can see it in the book of Acts, how they sold some people sold their belongings so that everybody could be comfortable. People sold their belongings so that everybody could be comfortable, everybody could have something to eat and all that. If you look closely in the book of Acts, you are going to know why Apostle Paul even instituted this thing called offerings, so that help could be offered to the widows in Jerusalem. And you look at that, and you look at what a greater majority of the church has become today, so selfish, self-centered. And as a result of that, it has trickled down into the people and the members who are gathered in church to become so selfish and self-centered. So selfish and self-centered to the point that prayer that God gives freely to every believer, and they are not giving you money, they are not giving you food, they are not giving you clothes. It's even difficult for Christians to even pray for other Christians. It's difficult for Christians to pray for the next person. You can do your survey and go around some of these prayer places people meet and watch. When a prayer point like breakthrough is raised, you see how people pray like there is no tomorrow. And in the same prayer gathering, when they are asked to pray for somebody amongst them who is not well, who needs prayers, you see their attitude immediately. They act as if they don't have energy to pray. It's self-centeredness. It's selfishness. The enemy is using it to stop us. The enemy is using it to hold us back, to reduce the power God gave to the church. And he said, where two shall agree on a thing, I, the Lord, am going to answer. The power of corporate prayers. If two agree on a thing, I, the Lord, I'll answer that prayer. It's difficult. A lot of the dreams, visions, some of us are sharing, and if you look out there in the world, a lot of people are sharing some of these things. God is sending out a lot of messages, a lot of warnings, a lot of promptings to prepare the house of God, to prepare his people who are called by him. A lot of them are not praying, are not interceding, they are not contending with some of these things. If you look out there in the world, we should have around 2 billion or maybe 3 billion Christians. And you ask yourself, what percentage of these people are going on their knees and contending with some of these things that are being shared, that is coming on there, that we are spreading on there? It's become a problem. Now you ask yourself, a person who even is even a burden for them to pray for themselves for 1 hour, how are they even going to intercede for somebody? It is where the enemy has limited us. One of the things Christians don't have to pray for is the ability and power God has given us in a place of prayer to overturn every situation around us. To overturn calamity, issues, problems, everything. You have seen. Jesus Christ, when he was in Jerusalem, doing all the miracles, raising the dead, healing cripples, he turned water into wine. People partook of that wine, and then turned around and said, "This is the shepherd's son." After they have seen his works, and we see how Jesus Christ crossed to the other side. People he has never met before, people who were not members of his church. That day is recorded. Jesus fed 5,000 men. Women and children were not counted, and even had excess, leftovers. He does not know them from anywhere. They are not members of his church. And we can fast track to today, when there are people in certain places that help can be given to, and they are refused because of this selfish, self-centered, mentality, which was not part of what the apostles were practicing in their days. Even Jesus never practiced that. But we see it today in the house of God. How come a movement that championed charity has now transformed and become something else? A movement that championed charity, and any Christian, true Christian that said is following Jesus, you have to understand this. A lot of believers are not following Jesus. A lot of you are following men. And so you are copying the steps, even the errors of men. One of the big problems we are seeing today. One of the reasons why we are not seeing the reflection. We are not seeing the shadow. We are not seeing the image of Christ in people. It's because a lot of people who are gathered in this place are only following men and following the steps of men. If you are following the steps of men, you are going to follow the mistakes of men. A movement that championed openness, compassion, charity. You've seen this so many times. It has become a shadow of itself. Why? Because a lot of things are trickling in from the practices of the Pharisees. Mentalities, concepts, ideologies of the Pharisees are trickling in. But the true people who started this movement, the apostles and what they were doing, nobody wants to do it. So the members in the church too are learning the same pattern. A lot of believers have become self-centered. If the thing does not concern them, they don't care. If it does not concern them, they don't care. If it's even the next person, they don't care. And it is weakening us. The enemy is hiding behind that selfishness, that greed, and is destroying the house of God. It's taking away the power of the believer. You are not brought here to be a follower of any man. Yes, it's good to have mentors. It's good to appreciate how God is using a certain man of God in a certain way, in a certain flow of the gifts and all that. But you are not here to follow any man. If Christians will return to the center point and focus on Jesus, who came and walked here and has lived his life, and he has left a lot of examples for his people who claim they're really following him to follow. I'm telling you, the church we are seeing today is going to be reborn all over again. A lot of things are going to change in the lives of the people who are actually following him. Thank you once again.